Welcome everyone to another exciting conversation. So happy to be here with you, Bart and David.
Thanks.
We're going to be talking about Bart's message, which is called Steady Your Feet, Extend Your Reach. Um, he opened with a beautiful psalm, Be my rock of refuge. For the sake of your name, lead and guide me. That's just a paraphrase. Um, I thought this sermon was especially poignant for right now because we've had a couple of weeks of solitude in which to discover maybe our true selves, how we really are without the rest of the world looking in at us, unless you're on Zoom, I guess. Um, but I've had a couple of weeks to unwind and really just sort of saturate in being here and what is making my heart happy, what I'm worried about, kind of just time to think, time to be with the people that I love. At the same time, it's also getting real. There's coronavirus cases here. We're feeling the next couple of weeks are going to be, it could get pretty dark. So there's a feeling of maybe a different kind of a panic than the, oh no, we have to buy groceries panic, but now the, okay, whew, here we are, and we're poised for the next few weeks. There's also the reality setting in of finances, all those things. So there is this sense of being in the middle of it. You're in a place where you're being still and also needing to reach up and over and beyond. And that were the two things that I thought were great to focus on. And I'd like to maybe just open that up for a little more discussion about. One word that I thought as you were preaching on was distractions. I feel like distractions have been something we've gotten rid of and also accumulated over the last couple of weeks. And at the same time, some of those distractions seem really stupid now. Stuff that I used to really think were important 2 weeks ago is like, who even cares? Like, that's not important. Reality is here and now, and that's something that we don't get to experience very often. Is just the immediacy of the moment. So anyway, that was my opening remark.
Very good. Very good.
What do you guys think about one of those things, either being distracted or actually I opened it up too many things, I guess. But let's go back to here we are. We're at maybe a little special place in time right now, actually.
David, do you have any thoughts?
Well, personally, we have our first acquaintance who's suffering deeply from the coronavirus. So she's currently just come out of her second medically induced coma. So we've been praying through 2 comas at this point, and she's waking up and she's coughing. So we're thankful. But Kathleen, you're right. This is sort of the setting in of the new reality that has our hearts somber and heavy. And Bart, coming out of your talk, I was struck kind of the in-between of what Kathleen mentioned with the steady feet and the reaching out. There was actually something in between there, and it was the voice telling you to look up. And that has been the word that's come for me. And there is a liturgy that I came across, a friend sent, that was a liturgy for information overload. And it reminded us to listen to God's voice from Psalm. And Bart, you mentioned a couple great Psalms in your talk. Another Psalm, Psalm 29, said the voice of the Lord is over the sound of many waters. And Bart, I'm seeing the painting behind you, and I'm recalling having walked and scrambled over rocks, right to where a waterfall is coming down. There's one waterfall I can picture. Bart, you've been there at the YPO Valley on the Big Island. There are these beautiful waterfalls coming down, and I was on a couple-day backpacking trip and, scrambling up rocks and getting right to the base of the waterfall where it's all crashing down. And the sound and the wind is deafening. It's one of those places where you almost can't hear yourself think. And in your dream, you heard God's voice. And that voice is the voice that's over the sound of many waters. It's the voice that's over the sound of too much information, of overwhelming circumstances. It's the voice of faithfulness and of love that is always coming at us. So I would say for me, what's jumped out is tuning into the voice of God in this time and listening as the tide of this season of shutdown and life going on pause and distractions disappearing and priority shifting, just listening and trying to listen well.
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry about your friend. I'm glad that she's alive, and we'll be praying for her. God knows her name, so we'll be praying for her. I think we'll be facing more of those things. I've got a son who works in mental health, and he's in a shelter today, helping the homeless. So I think probably pretty obviously exposed. I think we all have situations that we're worried about and concerned about. And to find that voice above the waterfall, the picture behind me, as you mentioned, is a picture by painting, I should say, by Stephen Quiller, my favorite artist, and sort of inspiration for my own pursuit of art. You see that great waterfall coming down. Now, in this case, it's a beautiful waterfall. And sometimes our distractions are beautiful distractions. They're not always sirens or something coming at us. But they are distracting, which means they keep our eyes off focus. Mother Teresa said one time she was asked by Fidel Castro, why, if there's such a loving God in the world, why are there all these problems? Why is it so terrible in the world, and how's it gotten here to this way? And she she was sitting there, and actually it turned out he was in a room with a whole bunch of people, and he kept sending them all away. And then finally it was just he and Mother Teresa and her one sister, I think, Sister Frederick, and a translator. And so he asked this question, and she said, the reason there's so much pain in the world is because we're so distracted. Those were her words. And when I first heard that, I thought, what? But think about it. We're so distracted off the important things, even supposedly non-spiritual things. I think everything's spiritual, but just reading today that a number of years ago, my own state had $500 million worth of medical emergency stuff set aside. And then as we went into some various financial crises, it got cut back and cut back and cut back. And so now and it was specifically for a situation like this. And now there's hardly anything in those stockpiles compared to what there used to be. And the article said that it saved us $5.8 million. Well, it's going to cost us over $1 billion to make up for what isn't there and what wasn't there. Why? Because we got distracted. We actually had the stuff, got distracted by the recession and some other things, and just didn't keep our eye on the ball, what would happen. Same's true in our spiritual lives, I think, which are just our lives, by the way. I mean, our spiritual lives are our lives. And we get distracted. I was thinking about even during this time when we don't have as many appointments and those sorts of things, I'm finding myself distracted by this, like by doing this video thing and figuring out how to do a Zoom call. And, now some of those things are really important. I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing this away. There's a verse, I'm trying to think how it goes. It's in Romans 12, I believe, where he says, with eyes wide open to the mercies of God, I beg you, my brothers and sisters, to present your lives to God. That's your spiritual form of worship, something along those lines, with eyes wide open. I think that's what we need more of. And that means not getting distracted here and distracted there.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I had I had another pastor tell me several years ago not to waste a good crisis, and not
That's a good one.
That this is a good crisis, but the point being, when you're in a crisis, learn everything that you're supposed to learn from it. I.e., we'll probably not spend a bunch of reserve money if the state sets it aside in the future, like for a dire circumstance. The Titanic. No one goes on a boat without adequate lifeboats because how stupid are they? You know, in our own lives, you know, okay, what is it that we need to be learning for ourselves during this time? What is God teaching us personally about our values, things that we previously thought were important? Maybe the time that we're spending or not spending with people we love. Maybe it's our pursuits, you know. There's so many ways that we can learn and be taught during a crisis. And it's a really raw time, which is the in-between time. Often the transition time is the most that you remember out of your whole life, are those transition moments where you're like, okay, this is weird. What is happening? My whole life is upended, you know.
Well, let me take what you just said, because it's funny, right before this conversation, when we decided to record it, I was reading a Richard Rohr update or reflection, and he was talking about not wasting a good crisis, basically, and he didn't use those terms. I think that's a great way to say it. Yeah, obviously the crisis isn't good, but it's a good crisis. It's a real crisis. There are lots of good things to learn from it. And he listed 5 things that he thought this crisis should teach us. And they came from research he'd done on initiation rites in cultures all across the world, because people are initiated into a new stage of development. And that's true spiritually. We have stages of development. And he said there are 5 things everybody needed to learn in initiation rites, which is our own spiritual development. And these are not easy things to hear. So let's see if this crisis lives up to them. Are we learning that life is hard? Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. Number 2, you are not important. Now that's a little counterintuitive because we follow Jesus and he says everybody's important. But the point is here, it's not all about you. The world is not centered on you. That's a good thing to learn. And if you don't learn it, you're a narcissist. And we were all narcissists at some point of our development. 2-year-olds are pretty narcissistic. They actually think the whole world revolves around them. Number 3, your life is not about you. Wow. Boy, if our culture could get to that point, that would be wonderful. Well, the people who get to that point we call saints, because their life is about something greater than themselves. But actually, we're all meant to be that. In fact, Mother Teresa, who I quoted earlier, used to say, holiness is not the luxury of the few, it's the duty of all of us. We're meant to be holy, by which she meant loving and Christ-like. Number 4, to learn from this crisis, you're not in control. That one's pretty clear. That one's pretty clear. And number 5, this is a tough one, especially for us Westerners. You're going to die. You're going to die. You are, the Buddhists say it this way, you are of the nature to die. You are of the nature to grow old. You are of the nature to die. You say, well, Bart, come on, you're supposed to be uplifting here, you know, during this time. Actually, it's freeing to come to the reality that you are going to die. Then you can figure out how to live. Now, actually, in our faith, we know we're just going to die to our physical life on this planet, and we're going to open up to some amazing thing afterwards. But we are going to physically die. And to accept that ahead of time gives you the freedom to live in love in the meantime. So those are, I thought those were pretty fat. They were a little shocking, but sometimes a shock is good.
I'm impressed you remembered all of those. I
didn't. I was looking at my cell phone.
Okay, good. I was like, gosh, I'm writing down quickly.
When I was off camera, I think I was off camera anyway, I went, oh, this fits perfectly. And so I went to it. So I'm really not that sharp.
No, those are good and hard.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you're in a situation that's transforming or transformative,
Yeah.
Where we are right now, it's important to ask the big questions and be real with yourself and with the people that you love. I do think we're gonna mature as a people, like as an entire world. It's very maturing to be all in the same boat. It's very, I mean, I know that we're not. I know that my experience here is different from someone else's experience, maybe in the inner city or in a different living situation. But we're
No,
all experiencing.
it is an equalizer though.
Yeah.
It is.
And
And you
there's not,
mentioned that.
yeah, there's not much else that could have done this. I think I mentioned that in my talk. What could have potentially united us? So whether you're a refugee in Syria, and there's where some of my deepest concerns are for the refugee population
Yeah.
of the world, whether you're there or here in Santa Barbara, California, that virus doesn't care. It's a unifier in a very odd sort of way. I hope, Kathleen, you're right, that we as a global culture will mature because of this. I have some cautiousness about that because I've seen that when crises come to individuals or to groups, they have the choice whether to mature through them or not.
That is.
I've seen people grow bitter because of crises, and I've seen people grow loving because of crises. I'll give you an example. I was talking to, let's see, since we're on the internet, I won't use her name, but a 92-year-old person in our congregation who's had to be home. We thought she was probably going to die 2 years ago. In fact, I told her on the phone yesterday, you were supposed to die 2 years ago. What's going on? And we have a great relationship. And she's sharp as a tack. She laughed. And she says, I'm a miracle. I said, you are a miracle. And I said, well, tell me how you're feeling right now. Because she can't leave home. She has 4 caregivers taking care of her. She says, oh, it's wonderful. I've got 4 caregivers they pamper me. I love being pampered. This is a person who could, 1 minute, might be ready to die, and the next minute she's popping along, and she says, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. She says, I get to talk to my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. And she says, I'm 92 and my husband's still alive. Who do you know that's 92? What woman do you know that's 92 and her husband's still alive? And he's so wonderful. And he looks younger than me. And she went on and on. Everything she said was, I've had such a blessed life. And then she starts asking me questions. She knew all my kids' names. She knew how many kids they had. She knew where they lived. So here she is at the very tail end of her life. And who knows, maybe I am too, and just don't know it. But she's full of gratitude. And I did say that to her. I said, well, one reason you've lived to be 92 she says, I should have died 5 times. She outlined them for me. And I said, it's because of what you're demonstrating right here on this call. You're so full of gratitude. And so I think when a crisis comes, we can, with gratitude, learn a lot of good lessons, like life is hard, like it's not all about you, I can't remember all 5 of them, but
Kathleen wrote them down.
You're gonna die. I remember that one.
We all remembered that one.
I remember that one. And isn't it interesting that Jesus, one of his core teachings on being a disciple of his was to embrace your own death. And he I don't think meant the physical death mostly. I think he meant a death to a self-centered life. He said, anyone who would come after me must die to himself, die to herself, pick up their cross daily and follow me. So there's a dying to this egocentric self that this crisis can help us learn. And what we tend to do is distract ourselves so that we can keep our little ego alive and believing that we really are the center. We really can control everything. So let's hope and pray that this crisis will teach each of us individually, what maybe our whole global, well, hopefully become a global community.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great place to end, Bart. Thanks for that. I feel like, I feel like those are things to think about this week. One thing you said during your sermon that I loved was we need to find new ways to nurture our heart. And so as we're going out this week, to embrace what God is telling us and teaching us during this moment right now. And just to be open, I think. God is surprisingly I mean, he's full of surprises.
Yes, he is. Well, thanks for guiding us. Thanks, David, too. It's good to be together, even if it's on a screen.
Yeah, great to see you all.